here to talk about why and how I am learning Chinese. It's only been maybe like 2 months since I started learning Chinese. So these are some methods that I chose to start with. I'm a total newbie here, so yeah, just take it with a grain of salt. Let's begin. Just to give you some background, I am from Korea. I grew up in Korea till I went to the States to study. So I started from 8th grade from the USA. And that's when I also started to learn English. So English is my second language, but it has been a long time since I've been an ESL or ELL student. I'll use the term ESL in this video. After I graduated, I was teaching in Korea for a while. I was teaching English and I studied education for science. So now I am in Taiwan at an international school teaching science, and I mainly teach science, but I also teach Bible. The school that I'm teaching at, international school, it's an international school, which means that the school year began last year, August, since this is my first year of teaching at the school. But the thing is, it's only been about 2.5 months since I've arrived in the country because of COVID-related issues. Yeah, so things got delayed a lot. But I am very grateful that I was finally able to come. Meanwhile, I was teaching online for a long time, right? Over 1 semester. And I am here. I arrived here February, so it's been about 2.5 months, but that also includes 21 days of quarantine. So yeah, it's only been about maybe like a month, over a month, that I've been teaching on site. And it's been great. Yeah, I love my students, I love teaching here, I love the school. The campus is very nice and green and peaceful, as you might see in my other videos, but I've been learning a lot. And it's definitely, it's been a new experience, trying to get settled and get adjusted to the new environment, like earthquakes that I have never experienced before coming to Taiwan, but it's been good. I've had a very good support system and great colleagues, coworkers, teachers that are helping me to get settled. Hey, 我爱你们，我很喜欢台湾. Okay, as I am getting adjusted to this new life, I've also picked up learning Chinese. And first of all, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why I decided to learn Chinese. And you might be thinking, of course you will learn Chinese. You are in Taiwan, in a different country where they speak the language. Well, that's true, but also I am on an English-speaking campus where my students are required to talk in English so that we can promote English learning, which makes sense. So if I am not intentional and put extra effort into it, I can totally go by without learning Chinese. So, but I have made a choice to learn Chinese, and here are 3 reasons why. Boom, boom. And number one, okay. Number 1, I love to learn a language. And while making that statement, then you may be wondering, oh, so how many languages do you speak? Only 2. I obviously speak Korean and I've learned English. And while I was in the States, I have attempted to learn Spanish. Yo hablo un poquito español. So I really do not speak Spanish. But now that I am in Taiwan, I decided to learn Chinese. And you know, for me, being around people who speak that language really encourages me and gives me this desire to want to learn that language even more. And clearly, I am surrounded by Chinese-speaking people, like my students and my teachers and just people here. They speak Chinese, and I love to learn and know what they're saying. But it's really funny because, at least for me, this is how it works. Once I hear that language more and more and get to know the people who speak the language starts to sound like music to your ears. Does anyone agree? No? Well, just feel like the language sounds prettier as with time. So I'm like, at first I was like, wow, Chinese sounds difficult. Well, I'm not saying that it is not, but more and more I'm starting to think like, oh, it's a really beautiful language. I want to learn. Let's go on to number 2. Well, that makes 4. Number 2. Learning Chinese helps me be more patient as a teacher, since a lot of my students are ESL or ELL. English is their second language, and they're here to learn English. It helps me to be more patient and be more understanding. You see, I thought because I was once an ESL student that I'll be able to put myself in the shoes of these students much better, but it has been a very long time. I mean, it helps to a degree, but it also has been a pretty long time since I've been a beginner ESL. Beginner, yeah. Clearly, I'm still struggling. But now that I am a complete beginner with learning Chinese, when I've taught my student maybe like a word 10 times and he or she hasn't gotten it yet, and rather than getting frustrated, I'm able to remember how I have been struggling with this one Chinese word over 10 times over the last week, right? And then I'm really able to be patient and more understanding, right? Rather than getting frustrated and telling my student like, why don't you understand? I'm able to really think like, oh, actually, I mean, I'm a teacher and I'm learning Chinese voluntarily as a hobby and I'm still struggling. Of course, my students are gonna struggle. So yeah, that actually helps a lot, more than I expected. That wasn't my original intention, but I realized that it has that effect once I have started learning Chinese and simultaneously teaching my students. And number 3, last but not least, I mean, I'm in Taiwan. What better way to learn a language than to be in that country, right? It's not every day that I get to be in a country where the people speak a language that I want to learn. So while I'm here for my work, for my job, I decided that I should just learn. And as I've told you, I'm on an English-speaking campus, so I need to be much more intentional, but I'm trying. Haha. And the next part, how am I learning Chinese? Well, as a teacher who teaches ESL students and having experience teaching English, I'm trying to incorporate those methods of teaching, like specifically teaching language. So strategies and teaching methods that worked for my students, that are scientifically proven and research proven to work for learning. I'm trying to incorporate that and apply that to myself. And also, the way I am learning Chinese is I am using several methods. So I tend to get bored with just one way of doing something. Like for example, I like to read several books at the same time of kind of different genre, so that I can like bounce around and read whichever book I feel like for that day. And actually, I do the same thing with language learning. That is just a short intro as to how I'm learning Chinese, but let's go and look at how more specifically those methods. But just a caveat, I am a beginner, right? I just started learning Chinese, which means that some of these methods I might need to switch out just a few months or a few weeks or a few days down the road. I have already switched out some methods that I realized that it's really not working for me and it's not very suitable for a beginner, but these are some methods that I've been using recently. So I hope you find some of them helpful. And I'm also making this video as kind of like an accountability video for myself. Yeah, a proclamation to the whole world that I am going to learn Chinese and I better stick to the goal. And of course, a few months into learning, but there are times when I'm just like, it's so meaningless. And I listen to people talking and Like, I'm pretty sure I spent some time learning Chinese, but I cannot understand a thing, that I'm super discouraged. But on the flip side, I will listen to a speech or listen to people talking, and I pick up words here and there, and I can kind of tell what they're talking about, and that gets me super excited. And I think those are the times that that remind me the reason I learn Chinese. I get motivated to learn again. But yeah, it's an up and down journey, just like any learning. Sometimes I don't feel like doing it, sometimes I'm just like, but I am sticking through it, and I believe that it will be worth it.
Hello everyone. Here's my developing list of things I use to learn Chinese. Kids show, music, YouTube lessons, daily lives, Bible, textbook. The two things that I value the most when I'm learning Chinese are continual exposure and incorporating assessments. Majority of these methods are meant to be fun and are seeped into my daily activities. However, if I were serious about wanting to make a vocabulary or a phrase stick for good, I make sure assessments are done one way or another. Yeah, I'm a teacher, and as much as having tests or quizzes sucks, it's been proven that this is how things stick in our minds. I think this may be why studying on my own is not easy, because assessing myself doesn't really come very naturally. Keep looking at the words may make me feel like I know the word, while in actuality, I don't. I've grown just familiar with it, but not actually know it. So I try to balance these two. Have enjoyable exposure and intentional assessments. Let's start with the fun ones. I try to expose myself to Chinese as much as possible through watching kids show like Peppa Pig or listening to Chinese music. I really like Peppa Pig. The videos are very short and the conversation simple. Peppa Pig has its official channel, but other channels like this one has uploaded videos with pinyin and Chinese subtitles that help with learning. At first, I slow down the speed to watch and try to get a feel of the overall story without looking at the subtitles. Afterwards, I watch it several times with different speed and with subtitles. Next, I love music. And I learned English a lot through songs in the beginning. I tried to sing along a song or just casually listen to these songs. I like to take long walks or go for a run, and that is a good time for me to listen to some of these Chinese songs.
Just came back from a walk, and let me just show you what I was listening to. So first I was listening to this. This is from the textbook that I'm using, and then it goes through like the dialogue and the vocabulary from the book, so I can review it. It's only in Chinese, so what I do is like I shadow, try to figure out like what they're saying and review the words that I learned. And then at one point I wanted to listen to some music, so I listened to some Chinese songs. This was recommended by one of my students, so I was just listening to that. Yeah. Yay.
I also watch other YouTube channels like Grace Mandarin Chinese or Mandarin with Miss Lin. They introduce common phrases or slangs that are also fun to learn. And here I'm watching one as I'm doing the dishes. And sometimes I will include what I learned from these videos onto my notebook so that I can review. But usually I just watch the video several times to learn the phrases or get familiar with the sound of it. Other exposure comes from daily lives. Like here, I'm taking part in online church, But of course, listening to people having conversations or announcements in the grocery store, music in the background, all of these things that allow me to practice my listening. And if there are phrases or words that are continually repeated, I will ask my friends around or my students of the meaning of that words. And maybe I will write it down on my little notebook so that I can review. 行动，行动，行动。福，福，祝福。And here I am using the Bible to study Chinese. I've seen some people use familiar books to learn Chinese, something they have already read in their native language, and they try to read it in Chinese. And since I am familiar with Bible verses already, I can use this to study Chinese. Here, I'm just using the YouVersion Bible app and GoodNotes to take some notes. I'm literally just looking at Genesis chapter 1 here. Haha. So these are all the activities that I enjoy doing and helps me get familiar with the language. Then, of course, I have this book I'm using to study. This book is a series, a course in contemporary Chinese, and it has been published by Mandarin Training Center, National Taiwan Normal University. So yeah, it is a book published in Taiwan and uses traditional Chinese, which is what I like about it. So I got it as an e-textbook on my iPad, and you can see it here. I am using it to study. It has dialogue parts, vocabulary, grammar section, and different exercise that I can do in order to review my work. So what I usually do is just read through it, try to figure out the meanings of it, based on some words that I may know. But yeah, it has text in English on the bottom. And then I listen to it several times. Okay, vocabulary. Ding, 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 ding.
生词二，
生词二，一
田中
田中成一。Taiwanese likes to drink oolong tea. 台湾人喜欢喝乌龙茶。And this is where the assessment comes in. All the vocabularies and phrases I have accumulated through all the mentioned activities are put into this notebook so that I can review. I'll carry this around to review whenever I can. Whenever I get a chance, I will also ask people around me, like my students or friends, to quiz me. I won't ask for much, maybe like 3 words or maximum 5 at a time, so that I'm not taking away too much time. But those little quizzes really help. And of course, I can quiz myself. I look at the English meaning and I try to say it in Chinese and check my answers. I also write down words and phrases from the textbook on this little notebook and my other notebook so that I can review and assess myself. 人家很漂亮，很漂亮吗？ Since I am first focused on speaking, I will quiz myself in saying the words and phrases, but if I were to expand my writing and reading skills, I would make a quiz for myself using GoodNotes. I also fully utilize the exercise sections in the book. I try to answer the questions without looking up words and will check my answers only when I've gone through it all. In addition, I try to use learned words and phrases as much as possible in appropriate situations. I will mix up words and phrases that I know and will try to say them. I'm not too afraid of making mistakes, and that helps in being a bit bold and speaking in imperfection. And that is how I've been learning Chinese so far. I have a goal to be able to engage in basic conversations within the next 1 year. At the end of the day, language learning is a marathon. I plan to pace myself but go on with endurance so that I'll be able to accomplish my goal. I hope you found some of these methods helpful. I hope to update you on the progress next time. And thanks for watching. Bye! 再见!